So in this video, or in the previous video, we talked about the text-to-image interface. We covered a lot of topics that relate to Stable Diffusion in that, particularly how the process works in terms of sampling steps versus the noise that's generated and how it gets diffused by these sampling methods, how all of these bells and whistles, buttons, and sliders on this page affect what image is generated based on your text prompt. So in this video, I want to talk about taking those, building on them, and using image to image. Basically, the difference between text to image and image to image is that you can, sort of like what we talked about a little bit when we covered in the previous video, the high-res fix, where it's doing like a double pass, and you start with the noise based on the seed. It samples up, you get an image, and then it'll run another pass based on that and fix things like the eyes, the face, whatever. Well, with image to image, you can actually add things to the image. So if we go and let's send this to image. Now we've got our image here that we generated from the previous video. And we want to change something about this image. It will take this image as an input and then, based on our text prompt, add or remove things or attempt to change it based on more modifications. So let's say we just want to swap the background behind this guy. We could just take this image and type in blue background. Let's leave color out. Yeah, let's leave that out. Leave the same width, height. Yeah, this will work. And then generate. All right, so it's taken this image as an input and then put in what it thinks is a blue background based on the way this image was set up as a starting point. So, not too useful. What fixes that, or how you can fix that, is this Inpaint tab here. So the idea for image to image is you could start with sort of like, it's almost like starting with an image prompt or an image noise and then generate something from that. So if we go back, we can interrogate this image using this interrogate clip right here, which is another machine learning model that basically will do like image recognition on this image. Let's see what it comes up with. We run that. It's going to take a second to figure it out. So we get a man in a top hat and a coat with a mustache and a cane standing in a photo frame with a black and white background by Augustus Jansen. If we hit generate from that, let's see what it comes up with. It modifies the image slightly, and actually I forgot, now I am running on the pruned checkpoint because it kind of resembles me a little bit, but I thought I might have been putting my face into the photo. So kind of gives you back a little bit of what you had. But that sort of gives you the idea that we can modify from this. So you could get it back further because the interrogation that it's running from this clip is doing its best to try to recognize it, but it's not going to hit it perfectly. So you could go back to the original image prompt. Let's find that here. Go back to text to image, open our folder, go back and get the actual text, which is a vintage medium shot angle. Yeah, I had it right here. I could have copied it. But if you don't have it there, you know how to you can click the folder and get back to the text there. Replace this. Let's put color in there for the negative. And see what happens now. Run it again. So you can see it's closer, a little more similar to what's going on. It's modified it slightly, kind of muddied it up. Probably the difference is the config scale, because I believe in this other image I had it at 8.5, and the denoising strength was, I also had a second, the second seed in there because I was actually generating from original noise there, but we don't really need that right now. Yeah, 8.5 on the config scale, Euler A. Let's try this. Let's actually get back to something that we talked about in the previous video, where I can show you how to get exactly this image back, because the idea here is it's going to modify, right? So the reason it's changing so much or so little is going back to what we talked about earlier, the config scale, where if we start and we just set it back to 1, we should get almost the same image, if not the same image completely. Nope. Actually, let's see what happens when we crank it back to 1. Yeah, so you can see it's taking this image, creating noise from it. It's the same process that we talked about in the text to image. It's taking this image, creating noise from it, and then it's going to sample from that to create a new image based on the text prompt. So it's basically like using an image as part of the text prompt. So you can use this as a guide for composition, let's say, and modify it from there. So let's see how that could be useful. Oh, I forgot to modify to the denoising strength. We didn't really have, if you look at the text to image, we don't have a denoising strength here. We only have the config value. What the denoising strength means in image to image is how much it will, again, modify. That's why these are in the same block here. You got the config scale and the 0.75. So if we crank the denoising strength down, and set our steps back to 30 and generate from that, then we get the same image, okay? And so this kind of gives you the ability to tweak modifications to the image in a kind of creative way. So if we crank up the denoising strength to like 0.2 and run it again, we get a slightly modified version where he's got more of a mutton chop mustache. And we can also then use this as a guide to change the resolution or the aspect ratio. So we can focus and make it wider. See the square now. And it'll just use that noise from that cropped area. So let's try that. So you can alter the resolution or crop in on it. Now it's going to scale out because it's taking, you can see it's better representation of the original kind of squashed and stretched. And what we'll do is we'll get in when we do the inpainting, you're going to need that because like when it starts, when you come into the image to image, it's going to be square. So we could crop it that way. And there's unfortunately not great tools in terms of using this image to image. If you go into the edit mode here, I guess you can crop it that way. So we could go do more of a face. This may actually be, no, it's not an extension. So this is actually built in now. So it's got this kind of like cropped view. Now it's going to take that and put it into a square, but you can see how we can crop in on it let's make it more vertical. You got to make sure it doesn't like auto fit because we're doing this 576 by 768 aspect ratio. We can still try to fit this square sample into that, and it's going to get distorted, right? But if we, give it something roughly the same, it should fit. Okay, looks like it even tried to add some glasses there. So this is a way of kind of getting at some details and then starting to add things or modify the image based on what you came up with text to image. Let's go full. So you can see what it's, that it's basically using the starting image as a reference for the noise, denoising it, and then going back and resampling to get something back to where it was. And it's kind of a nice way of sort of upscaling what you had, getting at a better composition if you wanted it, or even altering the image or coming up with variations based on this original starting point. Kind of similar to Midjourney, where let's cancel that. Back to text to image, and we're just going to send it back to image so we get back to the original again. And what you can do is run batch counts on this with a different seed and change our config scale. So again, in this case, this is the original. This is telling it to get more creative with this prompt above up here, and modify this original starting noise to greater or lesser degree. So less on the config scale means it'll modify. You'll get more of the original along with the denoising strength. So what this does is the denoising strength, setting it down to 0 means it's basically not going to denoise. It's just going to pass it through straight. The more you denoise, kind of the more diffuse that original image becomes and means in terms of the denoising structure. So therefore, you're going to get a much more varied image that way. So it's almost like blasting the image apart. The more you crank this denoise up, saying use like nothing of the original. So we're going to go denoise for this, and you'll see we may lose the structure altogether. Or at least more of it. Yeah, so I ran it 4 times, and you can see it kind of used just the light and the darks of the structure, but you got much less of the original in this. And you can also see that it's sort of muddying up what's there. That is probably because of the config scale. So if we crank that up, let's do that at like 7. It's a good place to start, or 7.5. Use this as the original, crank up the denoising strength of 1 is a lot. Let's see how it resolves though with better config or CFG. And notice that it's putting women in there now because I said person, not man. So it can come back with women. The bowler hat probably forces it more towards a man. So you see we get variations on that. It's still pretty close to what we had here. But if we crank this denoising amount, let's go like 7.5. Then we'll crank up the config scale so that it can get a little bit more creative. Or actually less. It might go more towards this guy again, but with variations. Sometimes it can. The relationship is inverse. Let's see. Yeah. So you see we get a closer fit the more we crank up that config or CFG to what we had originally with just some slight altering of the image. By cranking that denoising strength again down, we get a closer, more tighter fit again. But it'll be slightly modified. So what is that good for? I'll show you in a sec once we get this next version. Yeah, you see how it's these, we've got some eyes here, a little less eyes, same mustaches, pretty much the same image, just slightly altered in each one. Different carpet. So you can come up with, this is a really kind of fine-grained way of altering your original and starting to work with it. Let's see if there's anything else. So we could put another extra in here, keep altering it that way with having a little bit more of this original image as an anchor. We can try to think of some other way of using this. Let's go back down to 1. We've seen what restore face is. Again, we can do that here to get even more control. Some of these, again, some of the sampling methods may give you more altering of the image depending on what you start with in the prompt. But the main way to do this is basically to take this original and slightly alter the text based on what we originally had to get something different. So we could say, instead of man here, using the config scale, let's go look at 8 and the denoising strength at like 0.5. We could say, instead of a person, of a woman, and run that. And we get now a lady wearing essentially the same outfit. We could say, trying to come up with something that really kind of alters it, so we could wearing a hat instead of bowler hat. And that should fix the top hat a little bit, but because it sort of started off as a top hat, you notice how it tries to kind of add some color and flowers in there. But holds this main structure. We can then go and like crank up the denoising strength and crank up our CFG. So it sort of says, no, I want more. The CFG is going to give us more of the image. The noise will give us more ability to alter the image. So cranking both up gives us the structure, fixes the hat, sort of. Her eyes aren't great. Let's turn on restore faces and see. Tried an eye there. Let's take the config back down and leave the denoising up. I'm just trying to show how these things are tweakable and which way, what does what. So you can see it sort of heavily altered, kind of kept the top hat, gave us the face, is starting to like try to put a dress on this original like waistcoat that this guy has. If we go the other way, less denoising strength, more config scale, CFG, I read it as config. It's the program name. You can see we definitely get a woman, but we get essentially a woman in man's clothes. Well, we get the waistcoat. She's got the underclothes. And we lose, did it have a mustache? It did not have a mustache. So now let's try playing with this a little bit to get creative, just to show how much the text prompt still plays with this as an image, just using this image as a reference. Let's start low, like I said in the first video. We'll start small. And let's go let's leave it small here just to see. I want to get a kind of baseline of altering based on the current prompt. So we get from this guy, from the original here to this, where it's fixed the face, kept roughly the same picture. Okay, now let's try, even though I said woman, see I lost my ability there to get the woman because I may have cranked the config scale down too far, or the denoising strength. Let's try. So yeah, if I do this, it gives me more. So that'll, yep. So there's more of the original, and I've also got this restore faces. Let's lose that again just to get same, because yeah, okay. Crank up the config scale to 12, 13. Okay, we get our woman's face, still have essentially the same image with the hat. That's a good baseline. So now let's play around with the, we probably don't need this medium shot angle, and I want to show like we can do like a 1950s photograph of a woman wearing a hat. Let's do French countryside. And instead of 1890s, we got 1950s again. And I will bring, I'm going to take the color prompt out and let's say frame. Do a negative prompt on the frame. So now we get a woman with more makeup, but we're not given enough, and some interesting shoes here, but it's not given enough ability to modify the rest of the image. So what we can do is take our denoising strength up and crank up that config scale to try to give it a little more power to use this as composition or this original, but then modify it in the direction that we've asked for. There we go. So you see, I mean, it's not a great picture, but you get the idea. I noticed this thing likes to put hats on top of hats on top of hats, which is interesting. We can fix that with image to image here in a little bit, or image to image in Paint. But you get the idea. Is like we were able, by cranking this thing up, and if I go like even more, and it added some of the color back. I lost, it gives me the same, it's using this original, call it an anchor, and taking what I've given it for a text prompt and done its best to do what I asked it to do. So let's try giving it some more direction. Full color photograph. This will be interesting to see. Okay, well, it sort of went full color. Right now I've got a fixed seed. Let's lose that fixed seed so it's got a little even less anchoring to try to modify. There we go. So you see where the seed was kind of helping to hold this original form, and now we've given it something coming from this to vary it to get to something a little bit more 1950s. If you want to have even more, you can crank up the denoising strength. There we go. So it just gives it more and more leeway with lots of hats, apparently. Another way of getting even to a more finished final here is just crank up the steps, because you can tell that it's kind of getting there, but it's not quite, because there's still some issues with the face, and just generate longer. You can also play around again with the sampling methods. There we go. So hopefully that gives you a pretty good understanding of how this image to image works. Again, there are modifications to it. You can see that my scripts, I have actually more scripts on this pull down than I had in my original text to image. So you see I only have a certain number here, because some of these scripts are specifically for image to image. So like some of these, you can look them up. I'm not going to go through explaining, but the idea is like taking something similar to what we had with our in the previous video with the high-res fix here, where we can take our image to image and then run multiple passes using the script, like loop back, and superimpose, etc., or an animator. Like you can run these and it'll allow you to do something with your original image that will output it in a different way. So now we've got image to image explained fairly well. Hopefully, if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll try to make a video that answers them. The next part of it is, notice that with image to image, we have extra tabs here. So we have this Inpaint mode. Now, notice I went from this to this. You'd think it would just transfer it over. It doesn't. So whatever you've done here, when you get into this mode, it's a whole new interface. It's like this does not translate over. Kind of should as a UX perspective, but what you can do is go back to this, and then instead of send to image to image, you can send to Inpaint. So now we're back to where we were. And you'll see that when I come in here, it says start drawing, and you get this little paintbrush, this rough paintbrush, and you can mask things out. So the idea then is that you can selectively alter just parts of the image. So we'll come back to all this stuff down below. Let's just see if we get, let's see what we get since I've altered the prompt here. Actually, no, it sent the prompts too, so that's good. So we should get back to something close to this guy. Yep. Okay. Now we could say, what do we want to alter the hat? And we just paint that out, and we say, we can leave the whole prompt out. Color to, we might want to leave the color, because vintage medium shot photograph of instead of a person wearing a bowler hat. And we don't, and what, so you should understand what this prompt now is focusing on is not the whole image, it's what it's going to insert into this mask. So you don't want to do, let's try it just to show. You don't want to do this, because it's basically going to try to put picture like we've generated into the masked area. Well, actually it did just fix the hat. Sort of. It's done, it's generating like an image under it in the same aspect. So what you could do is just say cowboy hat underscore hat. And it'll just fit what it thinks of as a cowboy hat into the mask that you've created. So you can see where it's not doing a great job on the edges. You may need to mask out more. Luckily, we have lots. Let's just paint a little bit. We have lots of area here because I want to give him a big cowboy hat. And it's still not doing a great job. Sometimes you have to go back and forth. I'll show you in a sec, but let me undo what I just did and just what I kind of painted a little too low down on his face. There's kind of more of an art than a science to this. There we go. Starting to get there. And you could give it more description again, like I showed you in the previous video. The more text to describe the object, the better it's going to resolve. So we can say photo or vintage photo of a, we'll leave the A out, cowboy hat, 1890s. Let's see what that does. Now see, we've got like this head or face that it's coming from. What we can do is, this is a nice feature right here, because we're using a bigger image than 512 by 512, which is what the model's trained on. I find that using this Impaint at full resolution and then playing around with the padding on the pixels helps it. And then the other thing you can do is, and this is where these sampling methods come in really handy, because like Euler A will do okay, but it's not going to give kind of as much control. This DDIM might do better. Let's see. Starting to get there. Let's try, my config scale may be a little bit too high. And I'm locked on the seed, so let's leave that on random. My denoising strength I do want to leave high. There we go. So you see it's a better fit. It's not perfect yet, but and I'm going to get a different hat each time now, since if I like this one, I could, copy the seed like I did in the text to image, use that as a reference, and then build from there. But let's just run a couple and see what we get. That one, it's a nice hat, but it's got this back here. So what we could do, we could go in and Impaint just that, send this image to Impaint that, just that, if to get it out. Let's do well, one of the things that was kind of baked into this example, because I started and passed the image, is that the resolution came in at the same resolution as the image, so it just fits. That won't always be the case, because you can drag and drop images into this, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And when that happens, you definitely need to go and fit your affected area. Even if you're only painting some of it, you need to fit that to the overall image so that you get something close to the same. Otherwise, it won't fit at all. Let's do those take a long time. One of the things I figured out from the previous video is this DPM adaptive. We were running the sampling steps down to 1 and it was still returning a full image. It's basically saying, oh, I'm going to resolve it until I get something, no matter what sample rate you give me. Giving it more samples kind of improves it, but it behaves differently from these other algorithms. And that may be true for if there is another adaptive. There isn't. So that's why I couldn't get just a basic noise with this one, because I'd already had a text prompt in there and it was resolving to the text prompt even when I had it set to a sampling of 1. Let's do, and then you can see like I can do Inpaint masked or Inpaint not masked. So I could basically use this masking as a way of altering the background if I wanted. So let's try it with the interrogate clip again. So we're going to interrogate this image. Comes in with a man with a top hat, coat, mustache, cane. He might be holding it under his coat. Photo frame, black brown by Augustus Jansen. So now, if we go and we mask out just his body, we can change the background as I was attempting to do in the other one, but with more fine control, and it should leave him. So let's do man with top hat and coat and a mustache and cane, standing in front of the Eiffel Tower. Probably spelt the Eiffel wrong there. No, I did. Tower. And a photo. And we'll leave with the black and white background out. Let's see what happens. Oh, I Impainted the masked part. I want to Impaint, not masked. So in other words, I want to swap out the background. And let's crank the mask blur up a bit. Basically, that's going to give me a softer mask. There we go. So it kept him and then put the Eiffel Tower behind him. It also stuck a cane in there. Let's take that out. Not great, not perfect. Let's do force a little bit more. And what we can do is to fix this. Go back to this. I'm just going to paint down the center. As a way of kind of saying, yeah, keep this part, but you've got room to fuzz it on the edges. Yep. And yeah, everything else should be fine. Let's do that. This will give it more freedom to blend the edge back. Again, not great. Let's do change that fill and see what happens. Nope. Probably in the CFG scale, if I take it down and change the denoising a little bit. Let's see. See how I lost control there, creativity. Now it's gotten sort of there. It's like just by changing the denoising strength just a little bit. And it can be a really tight range here. It starts to change out the background and leave him. Still a little fuzzy. It's a little better. We could crank the mask blur up a lot and maybe change the Impaint full resolution padding pixels a bit. And we got back to him again, and you can see where it's sort of blending between the two. So because we're too fuzzy, let's change this back down. Try that. We're back to his original. This is where this interface could be a little bit better. You kind of want to just go And I haven't really figured out like where the blend point is. You'll see, I'll do it on a different image in a sec, but if you go too far with the mask, it can really change or alter and not give you such a good result compared to sometimes being a little looser with it. That's what I was trying to show here. And okay, so we're back to something that fits in. We'll crank up the denoising strength and pull up the config scale a little bit. Try to get the Eiffel Tower back. Sort of. Maybe like that. It's like he's posing in front of a background. Okay, that's sort of there. Again, it tried to pull the you can tell we're hanging on to him, but like it needs just a little, there we go. It needs a little more tweaking, and it's trying to like put somebody behind it. I think what's going on here is because I'm saying a man in a top hat, I've got him in there. I really just need to go back to like what I was doing with the hat, where I say a photograph or vintage photograph of Eiffel Tower in a photo frame. Let's try that. So we leave the man part out since we're masking him. And it's going to have people in it. And we can say no people. We can leave the Augustus Johnston part out, and we can say 1890s. Victorian era. Tin type. We didn't use that one. Okay. And we can probably take the frame part out because I kind of wanted to lose that. That's getting better. Let's take out the photo frame. That should give us the ability to mask out that. Yep. It's getting there. Let's go back and this will change the brush size basically. I'm going to undo. Let's just get rid of the mask and we will bring the image back. So in this case, I'm going to drag and drop here. Mask blur, and this is there's an extra that or a script that will let you kind of like vector pull a graph on this thing. Let's see if did I have that one. No, I didn't get that. It's just this plugin interface for being able to paint and mask this isn't great because you can't really pull a type mask. Like I said, on some of these, it'll do a good job to fit, but this one, for some reason, it's not. And I'm just going to like paint that part. Well, I'll probably lose its legs, but let's see. And try it again. Yeah, because I lost the man part, but you can see where it fits better around him now because I didn't paint it all the way to the edge. And that's partially to do with the fuzz, the mask blur. Yeah, there we go. It's still rough there. The idea is you can upload a mask from, if you go into Photoshop or something like that, where you can drag a black and white version of the mask and the image to be worked on, and it will use the black and white to mask it out, and you can get tighter that way, so you get better tools for being able to draw the mask than what you're getting with this kind of like Windows Paint type interface. Trying to see if, so you can see where it's like it's kind of fuzzy. It's not great. Looks like it was actually done in a Victorian era. Let's talk about having a little bit more control. Hopefully I've given you enough to see with the image to image how that works, and being able to modify using the text, and then the Impaint part. Another option here, let's see how I can do this. Let's go to I've got it in my downloads folder here. So I've got these images from the Big Lebowski. There we go. Let's try this one. Yeah, this will work. And I'm just going to show you some options with that. So what you can do is just drag and drop an image into your interface here. Select, like if you just want to do the face and leave the hair, or blend it to the hair, you can, let's see. Now that I should say, the Impaint at full resolution, this image is big. This image is, how big? 800 by 800, so it's not that big. But if you're using something like let's do this guy. This, yeah, 1280 by 825. Let's try this one. And you just want to like mask out the face and fill it in with something, right? I do recommend using this Impaint at full resolution. I'm going to show you without it first. And let's just put a face in here, say a person with a handlebar mustache. See what happens. Let's just leave it at that. It's taking its time, it's generating. Yeah, you see, well, I also had it on Outpaint, or the Impaint not masked. Let's do that again. And you can see that my resolution's wrong, which is going to cause the real issue. So try to put a face in there with a handlebar mustache. Not great. But also, too, because the resolution was wrong, I got that weird scale. So how do you fix that? You go down here, and when you do this, you can get it to roughly fit the same aspect ratio. And let's try it. Just did that. Notice it's taking longer. That's partly because the image is bigger. It's not, you could scale the image down. You don't need to, is what I'm trying to show here, is you can work on larger images. So this shows you where things can go wrong, and I'm going to explain why. The seed was different. My config scale is down, so you want to crank that up, because we really need to make it fit based on this original, kind of where we expect. I said a person, and I may want to just say a face because I'm putting it only on the face. Yeah, I'll leave the denoising strength there. Let's try that. And this is also, I'm using, as I said in the previous video, I'm using the standard 1.5 checkpoint. There is an Inpaint version of that which should do better. We'll try that in a sec. So it's not really working here. Let's try the Inpaint 1.5 Inpaint version. So it's like Stable Diffusion 1.5 Inpainting trained model. And just see, I haven't done this one before, so we'll see how it works. It's loading the model right now, or attempting to. Yep, okay. Let's run that and see. All right, so it's a little better. It's trying. This is where, again, if we go to this Inpaint at full resolution and give it enough resolution padding and pixels to kind of read the image around it, it'll probably match better. So if we put that in there, it'll start to like tilt the face better. So as it's generating here, yeah. So you started to get, it still needs some work. And this goes towards what I was talking about. It's like giving it more control in the text up here, letting it try to understand the image better, and then fitting it into that. So let's try masking a little bit more of the hairline so it understands kind of where the border region is, because it will blend. So let's do then a man, or let's do a man who looks like Jeff Bridges with long wavy hair and a handlebar mustache. And I'm gonna just, to help it with the color, say if I ran the interrogate clip here, it would probably come up with something like Quentin Tarantino. For some reason, it seems to see this image, and I guess based on the color, think that it's a Quentin Tarantino film. I don't know why, but you can do by Quentin Tarantino. Let's try that. And that could help with the lighting, blending it in. So I got the Jeff Bridges part, and it's having trouble interrogating kind of like how to fit, but you can see where it starts to blend in along the edges really well. It's just having trouble reading the face. And that's where you can give it a little bit more padding. You can crank up the sampling steps because you'll need to. It's trying to figure out more in terms of how to fit with this image than what a just straight text to image needs to generate, because it needs to like generate it and then kind of make it flush or fit into the scene. It's, but as the more we add, the longer it takes. It's actually a pretty funny picture. Getting there. The eyes are better. Maybe it needs more samples. And this is where I was saying I had my preferences for some of these other forms. Let's try DPM Keras and turn on restore faces. We will. Oh, another thing. We can blend with the original, again, using the config style here. So by giving it this denoising strength that was up at 7.3, I'm actually giving it more freedom to alter from the original. So if we take this down to like 0.5, that might make the face fit better. Because again, that's going to take it back to using a little bit more of the original for reference while still having a high CFG, so I can force my text prompt to fit. Yep, it's getting there. Actually, that's pretty good compared to the original. So let's get into modification now that we've got something that's starting to work. Let's do man who looks like Ron Swanson with long wavy hair. Leave the mustache out because he's got one. And we're going to say Nick Offerman. Quentin Tarantino. Let's put a comma there. That might. Let's see what happens. So you can see where that method that I use, the DPM2Keras, just does a slightly better job at resolving, especially given more samples and fitting into this image this Inpainting on the image in terms of color. So there's our Nick Offerman face with the mustache fit. That's pretty great. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how I'm going to save that. That's too good. Hopefully that gives you an idea of how this Inpainting for Img2Img and how Img2Img itself can work with the default setup for Automatic 1111's WebUI. In the next video, I'll talk about, probably go into training using Dream Booth and how to get like our own faces in there. Trying to think if I've covered everything in this. This batch Img2Img is basically being able to give it a directory of images and giving it a text prompt, and then an output directory to save those images to, And what it'll do, same thing I've showed you here already, is being able to take that original image, do some text prompt modification to it, and output it. So what you could do is, if you rendered like a low resolution pass of an alleyway in a 3D modeling program, you could pass that in, the rendered stills in, using the input directory, give it some text prompt that says that make this look like a cyberpunk setup, and it'll do its best job to interrogate that image, the original sample noise, and then output, what you're trying to tell it with the text prompt based on your config scale and your denoising strength, so that you can actually kind of stylize the render. I've actually got some examples that I've done of that. If you're interested in that process, I can do a video on that. Just let me know in the comments. But it's one of those things that should be fairly intuitive based on this video and what I've been able to show you in terms of modification of the image. So I'll leave it at that for now. So we went from this guy to being able to put Ron Swanson's face into this Big Lebowski picture, which should explain most of how the image-to-image stuff works. There's some stuff to know. There's a poor man's outpainting here script that you can get, which will give you the ability to do that kind of paint out from an image and extend. You interrogate the image, mask it, give it some overlap, and then it'll broaden the image out. I won't go into that for this because, to be honest, it's not as good as some of the other tools that are out there yet. So hopefully that one gets better. But in the next video, I'll cover setting up extensions, particularly Dream Booth, and how to train that and get your own face into this stuff. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments.